Becky sat in her room at the nursing home, staring out of the window. The view was nothing like the one she had enjoyed for decades from her own home. Her room was small, sterile, and devoid of the familiar comfort she had been used to. It had been 6 months since her children had made the painful decision to move her into this place, and it still felt like a prison. The memories of her cozy house, the one she had raised her children in, the one she had watched her husband pass away in, the one where she had celebrated countless birthdays and anniversaries still haunted her. The house was her sanctuary, filled with mementos of a life well lived. But her children had deemed it too much for her to handle, and they had sold it, pocketing the money for themselves. Becky's heart ached at the thought of her children's betrayal. They had assured her that they were doing it for her own good, to ensure her safety and well-being in her old age. But she knew better. It wasn't about her, it was about the money. The house held more than just sentimental value. It held the key to her independence and happiness. Without it, she felt like a caged bird. She missed the creaky floors, the smell of her husband's favorite dishes, and the laughter of her grandchildren echoing in the backyard. She missed her home. Becky was determined. She couldn't let this stand. She knew she had to find a way to get her house back. She would do whatever it took, even if it meant confronting her own children. The fight to reclaim her home had begun. Becky had spent a restless night tossing and turning in her uncomfortable nursing home bed. The determination to reclaim her home fueled her, and she knew she couldn't waste any more time. The decision had to be made. She had to take action, and she had to do it quickly. The following morning, she pressed the button for the nurse to help her get dressed. As she went through the motions, she couldn't help but think about the house. Every piece of clothing, every pair of shoes, everything she had ever owned was now gone. It was all in someone else's hands, and it made her stomach churn. When the nurse left, Becky reached for her phone and called her attorney, Sarah, who had been recommended by a fellow resident at the nursing home. She explained her situation and her desire to fight for her home. Sarah's voice was warm and reassuring, giving Becky a glimmer of hope in the midst of despair. They set up a meeting for the next day. Sarah would come to the nursing home to discuss the options they had. Becky felt a newfound sense of purpose. It was as if her life had been given a second chance, a chance to take back what was rightfully hers. During the rest of the day, Becky couldn't help but reminisce about the countless memories she had made in that house. It was where she had raised her children, where she and her husband had danced in the living room, where she had planted a garden that had bloomed with vibrant colors each spring. The house was an extension of herself, a reflection of her love and life. As the evening sun cast long shadows across her room, Becky made a list of questions and concerns to discuss with Sarah. She wanted to know if there was a legal way to challenge the sale of her home. She needed to be prepared for whatever her children and perhaps her lawyer might throw at her. The night before Sarah's visit felt like the longest night of Becky's life. Her mind raced with all the possibilities, all the what-ifs. She was ready to fight, to reclaim her independence, and to return to the place she had called home for so many years. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the nursing home, a determined look in her eyes. Becky was resolute as well, and together they started planning their strategy to take on the legal battle ahead. The fight to regain her home had officially begun, and they weren't going to back down easily. Becky had expected Sarah to be just another lawyer, cold, businesslike, and purely focused on the legalities. But as she sat across from her, the attorney's warm demeanor and genuine concern put her at ease. Sarah was more than just a legal advocate. She was a confidant in this time of need. Sarah had a stack of documents spread out on the small table in Becky's room, and she began explaining the legal aspects of the case. She talked about property rights, the sale of the house, and the potential avenues they could explore to challenge the decision. Becky listened intently, absorbing every word. She knew that it wouldn't be an easy battle, and the odds were stacked against her. Her children had orchestrated the sale, and they had done it with an air of finality. However, Sarah's determination gave her hope. As they delved deeper into the case, Sarah revealed some potential legal loopholes and avenues they could explore. Becky felt a flicker of optimism. She wasn't alone in this fight, and with Sarah's expertise, they might just have a chance. Over the course of several hours, they discussed the importance of the house to Becky, not just as a property, but as the cornerstone of her life. It was a place filled with love, cherished memories, and a lifetime of experiences. It was a symbol of her independence and resilience. Sarah's eyes softened as she listened to Becky's story. She saw the determination and pain in her client's eyes, and it resonated with her. The fight for the house had turned into a mission to preserve the dignity and autonomy of an elderly woman who had been cast aside. Before leaving, Sarah assured Becky that she would do everything in her power to help her. They had a long road ahead, with legal battles, negotiations, and confrontations on the horizon. But Becky felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. As Sarah left, she squeezed Becky's hand gently and said, "We'll get your house back, Becky. It's more than just bricks and mortar, it's your home, and it means everything to you. We'll fight for it together." Becky watched as Sarah walked away, a spark of hope lighting up her heart. The battle was just beginning, but she was ready to face it head on. The thought of her beloved house and the memories it held propelled her forward. She wouldn't rest until she had it back, no matter the obstacles in her path. With Sarah's promise of legal support, Becky felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that the battle ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to fight for what was rightfully hers. In the days that followed, Becky couldn't help but dwell on the memories locked within the walls of her former home. Each room held a story, a piece of her life that she had built with her husband, and the children who now seemed to have forgotten it all. She decided to visit her old neighborhood, just to stand in front of her house and feel a connection to the past. Sarah drove her to the familiar street, and as Becky looked at her house, she felt a rush of emotions. The house was still there, standing tall, but it was no longer her home. It had new occupants, a family she had never seen before. Tears welled up in her eyes as she recalled the sound of her husband's laughter in the living room, the aroma of his favorite dishes in the kitchen, and the family gatherings in the backyard. It had all been taken away from her, and the pain of that loss was immeasurable. Sarah, seeing Becky's emotional state, gently put a hand on her shoulder. "I know it's hard, Becky," she said, "but remember, we're going to do everything in our power to get it back." Becky nodded, wiping away her tears. She understood that revisiting her old house was a bittersweet experience. The memories were vivid, and they were a testament to the love and life she had shared with her family. She was determined to fight not just for the physical structure of the house, but for the essence of home that it represented. As they returned to the nursing home, Becky couldn't help but wonder if there might be something hidden in the house, something that could help her cause. That night she couldn't sleep, her mind racing with thoughts of the past, of her husband, and the life they had built together. The following day, she decided to reach out to her children, hoping for some clarity, even if it was painful. She invited them to visit her at the nursing home, wanting to understand their motives and perhaps find a way to reconcile. It was time to confront her children and unravel the mystery behind the sale of her home. Becky knew that her journey was far from over, and the road ahead was uncertain, but she was determined to face her past, her present, and whatever lay ahead with courage and a fierce resolve to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Becky's children arrived at the nursing home, hesitant and unsure of what to expect. The meeting was in the common area, a sterile and uninspiring space that offered little comfort. Becky sat in her wheelchair, a mixture of anxiety and determination etched across her face. Her children, Susan and David, looked different from the last time she had seen them. There were wrinkles of stress and guilt, and their eyes carried a burden that weighed heavily upon them. It was clear that they were not at ease with their decision to sell their mother's house. "Becky," Susan began tentatively, "we didn't want it to come to this. You know it was getting too difficult for you to manage the house on your own." Becky nodded, her voice calm but firm. "I understand that, but you didn't have to sell it. You could have found a way to support me without taking away my home." David sighed. "Mom, it's not just about that. We needed the money." There were debts and we couldn't see any other way out. Becky's heart sank. She had never known about any debts. Her husband had always been meticulous with their finances. The revelation left her with a sense of betrayal and confusion. "David, Susan," Becky said, her voice wavering with emotion. "I understand that you had your reasons, but you should have been honest with me. I would have helped. We were a family." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. It was a silence heavy with unspoken regrets, a silence that highlighted the deep divisions that had torn their family apart. After a few moments, Becky decided to change the subject, wanting to uncover any clues about her house. "Before I go, I need to ask you both something. Did you find anything unusual in the house? Maybe some old letters or documents, anything that might have been hidden?" Susan and David exchanged puzzled glances. "No, Mom," Susan replied. "We didn't find anything like that. Why do you ask?" Becky hesitated for a moment, then decided to share her thoughts. "I have this feeling that there might be something hidden in the house, something that could help us. Maybe my husband left something behind." As she spoke, her children's expressions changed from confusion to curiosity. They began to realize that their mother's attachment to the house ran deeper than they had ever understood. Becky left the meeting with a mixture of emotions. While she had hoped for answers, she had also received a harsh dose of reality. Her children had acted out of desperation, and the road to reconciliation seemed long and uncertain. The quest for her house and any possible secrets it held would continue. Becky's determination to uncover the truth and regain her home was stronger than ever. As Becky continued her journey to reclaim her home, she couldn't shake the unsettling revelation about her children's financial troubles. The burden of their undisclosed debts weighed heavily on her, and she felt a mixture of empathy and anger towards Susan and David. It was a complicated web of family secrets and financial difficulties, and Becky was determined to understand it all. A few days after the meeting at the nursing home, Becky decided to dig deeper into her children's financial situation. She reached out to their trusted family accountant, Robert, who had known the family for years. Robert met with Becky, and he explained the dire financial predicament her children had been facing. "Your illnesses over the past few years had unforeseen medical bills," Robert explained. "The children had been borrowing extra to cover the bills. Their mortgage payments and investments that had gone awry and pushed Susan and David to the brink of financial ruin," he explained. They had been too ashamed to admit their troubles to their mother, so they chose to sell the house in secret, hoping to salvage their own financial futures. The news saddened Becky, but it also opened her eyes to the desperation that had driven her children to such drastic measures. She realized that, in their minds, they had believed they were acting in her best interest. They feared that her well-being was at risk, and they couldn't bear the thought of her struggling alone in the family home. With the truth about their motives unveiled, Becky's anger began to wane. She understood the difficult position her children had been in, even if their actions had been misguided. The path to forgiveness seemed clearer, and she hoped for a chance to rebuild the fractured bonds of their family. It was more than just a dwelling. It held the memories of a lifetime and a love that had transcended the years. Becky was determined to find a way to reclaim it and, at the same time, support her children in their financial struggles. In the following weeks, Becky and her attorney, Sarah, started to explore legal avenues that could potentially reverse the sale of her house. They knew it wouldn't be easy, and they would have to navigate a complex web of legal intricacies. But Becky's determination was unwavering. As the legal battle loomed on the horizon, Becky's desire to uncover any hidden secrets within the house grew stronger. She believed that somewhere within those walls lay the key to her family's reconciliation and the resolution of their financial woes. The house held a history that was deeper than anyone had imagined, and Becky was resolved to unearth its hidden treasures, both tangible and intangible. As the legal battle over her house continued, Becky found herself in a constant state of emotional turmoil. The prospect of facing her children in court loomed over her like a dark cloud, but she drew strength from the friends she had made at the nursing home, particularly her newfound confidant, Alice. Alice was a remarkable woman with a quiet strength that had weathered her own share of life's storms. She had an uncanny ability to offer solace and guidance, having lived through challenges of her own. The two women had bonded over their shared experiences, and Alice had become a source of support and comfort for Becky. One sunny afternoon, as they sat in the common room sipping tea, Becky shared her fears and frustrations with Alice. She talked about the legal battle, her strained relationship with her children, and the longing she felt for her home. Alice listened attentively, her kind eyes filled with empathy. "Becky," she began, "I can't pretend to have all the answers, but I've learned that sometimes life takes us down unexpected paths. It's in those difficult moments that we discover our true strength and the people who are there for us. Your house, while dear to your heart, is just a building. It's the love and memories within it that truly matter." Becky nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. She felt fortunate to have found a friend like Alice, someone who understood the depth of her pain and the complexity of her situation. Alice's wisdom was a balm for her wounded spirit. As the weeks passed, Becky continued her legal battle, supported by Sarah's unwavering dedication to her case. They scoured legal documents, delved into property records, and sought every possible avenue to prove that the sale of the house was unjust. During this time, Becky received support not only from her new friend Alice, but from her fellow residents at the nursing home. Many had faced their own trials and tribulations, and they admired Becky's resilience in her fight for what she believed was rightfully hers. The media's attention on her case grew, and it became a symbol of an elderly woman's quest for justice. The community rallied behind Becky, offering encouragement and lending their voices to the cause. Her story struck a chord with those who saw her as a symbol of unwavering determination and resilience in the face of adversity. Becky couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Her journey was far from over, and the path ahead remained uncertain. But with the power of friendship and the strength of her resolve, she would continue to fight for her house and for the chance to rebuild the bonds with her children. The road was challenging, but Becky was determined to walk it with her head held high, guided by the enduring power of friendship. The court date was set, and Becky's case was about to be heard in a courtroom filled with anticipation. News outlets had picked up on the story of the elderly woman fighting to regain her home, and the public's interest was high. The media portrayed Becky as a symbol of resilience, and her story had touched the hearts of many. Becky, accompanied by her attorney Sarah, walked into the courtroom with determination etched on her face. Her children, Susan and David, sat on the opposing side, looking somber and conflicted. The room was filled with an air of tension, and the judge took his seat, ready to preside over the case. The legal proceedings began, and Becky's lawyer presented the case, outlining the various reasons why the sale of her house was unjust. She argued that Becky's rights had been violated, and the true motives behind the sale were financial desperation rather than genuine concern for her well-being. Susan and David's attorney countered, stating that they had acted out of love and concern for their mother's safety. They presented documents and testimonies from healthcare professionals to support their case. The courtroom was filled with conflicting narratives, each side fighting passionately for their perspective. As the court battle unfolded, Becky sat in the witness stand, recounting the memories, emotions, and the deep connection she had with her house. Her voice trembled with the weight of her testimony, but she spoke with unwavering determination. The trial continued for days, with witnesses called, evidence presented, and arguments exchanged. Throughout it all, Becky's friends from the nursing home, along with supporters from the community, sat in the courtroom, offering her encouragement and strength. As the proceedings neared their conclusion, it was clear that the judge faced a challenging decision. The case had garnered immense public interest, and the pressure to deliver a fair verdict weighed heavily on him. The fate of Becky's house, her family, and her future hung in the balance. Outside the courtroom, news reporters gathered to capture the events, and Becky's story became a symbol of resilience and determination. Her fight had struck a chord with people of all ages, resonating with those who believed in the enduring power of love and home. The courtroom battle had become a crucible of emotions, where the past, present, and future collided. Becky's journey was far from over, but she had come a long way in her quest to regain her beloved home. The final verdict would soon be handed down, and with it, the resolution of a family's rift and the chance to heal old wounds. The courtroom battle over Becky's house had reached a pivotal moment as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. The weight of the decision hung heavily in the air, and the anticipation was palpable. Becky's attorney, Sarah, stood beside her, offering silent reassurance. As the judge began to speak, the courtroom fell into a hushed silence. He acknowledged the complexity of the case, recognizing the deep emotions and family dynamics at play. He commended Becky's determination to fight for her home and her children's concern for her well-being. The judge's verdict was a compromise, born out of a desire to restore family bonds and protect Becky's rights. The house was to be returned to Becky, but with the condition that she would receive assistance with her daily needs and well-being from the state. This would stop the burden of financial stress on Susan and David. Becky's children, Susan and David, accepted the verdict with mixed emotions. The reconciliation would be a long and challenging journey, but it was a step toward healing their fractured relationship. Outside the courtroom, the news of the verdict spread like wildfire. The community had rallied behind her, offering support and encouragement throughout her journey. Neighbors and friends from the nursing home celebrated the news, seeing it as a victory not only for Becky, but for the idea that love, memories, and the sense of home could triumph over adversity. The process of moving back into her house was filled with mixed emotions for Becky. It was a bittersweet homecoming, a reminder of the family ties that had been strained but not broken. She was determined to rebuild her relationship with her children, to forgive and move forward. All Becky wanted was the truth and to make her own decisions for her future. With the support of her newfound friends and her attorney, Becky embarked on a journey of reconciliation. It was a path filled with challenges, but it was also an opportunity to mend old wounds and strengthen the bonds of family. The story of Becky's house had reached its turning point, but the journey of her life continued. The community's support had been a powerful force in her battle, and it would remain a source of strength in her quest to rebuild her family and cherish the home that held a lifetime of memories and love. As Becky returned to her house, it felt like stepping into a world she had left behind. The familiar creak of the wooden floors, the scent of her husband's favorite dishes, and the photographs that lined the walls all whispered stories of her past. It was a homecoming that filled her with both nostalgia and determination. With her house back in her possession, Becky turned her attention to uncovering any secrets that might be hidden within its walls. She remembered her earlier conversation with her children about the possibility of something hidden in the house, something that could help explain her husband's financial decisions, and perhaps their family's current financial turmoil. One sunny afternoon, Becky decided to start her search in the attic, a place she had rarely ventured into in recent years. The attic was dusty and dimly lit, with cardboard boxes stacked haphazardly. Becky began sifting through the boxes, filled with old books, forgotten trinkets, and memorabilia from her children's youth. After hours of searching, as she was about to give up hope, her fingers brushed against an old, dusty box tucked away in a corner. She pulled it out, her heart racing with anticipation. As she opened the box, she discovered a treasure trove of letters, photographs, and documents that had belonged to her late husband. The letters were a series of correspondences between her husband and a mysterious figure named Richard Sinclair, a man she had never heard of. They discussed financial matters, investments, and business dealings that had been kept hidden from her. As Becky delved deeper into the documents, she began to piece together a complex puzzle. It appeared that her husband had been entangled in a series of financial transactions, some of which had gone badly. The letters hinted at a financial burden he had been trying to resolve, a burden he had kept secret from his family. Becky's discovery was both enlightening and disheartening. She understood that her husband's intentions had been to protect their family from the truth of their financial struggles, but his secrecy had ultimately led to their current predicament. Armed with this new knowledge, Becky decided to confront her children with the information she had uncovered. She hoped that by revealing the truth about their father's financial struggles, they could begin to heal and rebuild their family bonds. Becky's journey had taken her through a tumultuous legal battle, a homecoming filled with mixed emotions, and now the revelation of long-kept family secrets. The path to reconciliation was challenging, but she was determined to navigate it with grace and love, while cherishing the home that held the legacy of her family's history. With the newfound knowledge of her late husband's financial struggles and the secrets he had kept hidden, Becky sat down with her children, Susan and David, to have a candid conversation. The truth had the power to either drive a deeper wedge between them or serve as a catalyst for healing and understanding. The meeting took place in the living room of the house that had been the center of their family life for so many years. The atmosphere was tense, but Becky was determined to convey her husband's intentions and their shared history. She shared the letters, photographs, and documents she had found in the attic, each piece of evidence a window into her husband's world. As the children read through the correspondence between their father and Richard Sinclair, they began to understand the financial challenges he had faced and the sacrifices he had made to protect the family. It was a sobering revelation, one that made them reevaluate their actions in selling the house. Susan and David's faces displayed a mixture of emotions, shock, guilt, and a profound sense of loss. Their perception of their father had been challenged, and they now realized that their actions, though taken with good intentions, had failed to honor his memory. Becky spoke with a calm but resolute voice. "We must remember that your father's greatest concern was for the family's well-being, and that's why he kept these struggles hidden. It's time for us to come together, to reconcile our differences, and to rebuild what was broken." The words hung in the air, and the realization of the gravity of their actions began to sink in. The house had not only been a physical structure, it had been a symbol of their family's love, history, and the sacrifices made for their future. With the understanding of her husband's motivations and the family's collective past, Becky, Susan, and David embarked on a journey of reconciliation. It was not a path without challenges, but it was one they were willing to walk to honor their family's legacy and the memories that the house held. In the following weeks, they gathered as a family, sharing stories, laughter, and even tears. They reminisce about their shared history, and slowly but surely, the wounds that had torn them apart began to heal. The house, which had borne witness to their lives, was now the setting for their reunification. Becky's journey had brought her full circle, from the heartache of being separated from her home to the discovery of family secrets, and finally to the healing of deep-seated wounds. As the days turned into months, Becky's house became a place of rekindled love and cherished memories, a home once more in every sense of the word. The house, once a source of division, had transformed into a symbol of unity, a place where they could come together as a family. One sunny afternoon, Becky decided to host a family reunion in their backyard, a tradition they had neglected for years. The garden, once a vibrant tapestry of flowers, had withered during her absence in the nursing home, but with a little care and attention, it was slowly regaining its former beauty. The reunion was a chance for Becky, her children, and her grandchildren to come together and celebrate their shared history. The sound of laughter and the aroma of her husband's favorite dishes filled the air, carrying with them the spirit of togetherness and reconciliation. Becky's heart swelled with happiness as she watched her family reconnect. Her grandchildren played games on the lawn, the same lawn where her children had once played. Memories were shared, and stories were told. It was a day of rekindled bonds and newfound hope. The house, which had been at the center of their family's turmoil, was now a place where the past was celebrated, the present embraced, and the future held with optimism. Becky knew that the journey to this moment had been a long and challenging one, but it had been worth every step. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Becky looked around at her family gathered in her backyard. The house, the keeper of their shared history, stood as a silent witness to their reunification. The scars of the past would never fully disappear, But with love, understanding, and a renewed commitment to family, Becky and her children were determined to move forward, hand in hand, embracing the promise of a brighter future. The reunion was not just a celebration, it was a declaration of their commitment to one another. Their family had weathered a storm, and now they stood stronger, more united, and ready to face whatever the future held.